Mike had alluded to this after episode one or during episode one about the resources that are things that you need that you're going to want to bring to the table or at least have in your appointments with your pool designer. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and run with this?
Well, so the first thing that happens, and a lot of times we get the wrong information, is someone comes to us and they're building a house. And when they're building a house, they have a document that shows where the house is going to be on the property. And with that process, what we ask for is a survey. And the reason a survey is just because it's accurate.
And what is a survey, Mike?
Well, a survey is going to show the property, it's going to show the house location, and it's always got a stamp on it by the surveyor because the surveyor is going to, stamp off on his work. So if there's no stamp on it, it's not a survey, it's what's called a plot plan. So when the home builder takes the plans to the city and says, "This is where I propose to put the house," that is a plot plan, and that is a proposed location. That's not an exact location. So when they go put it on the ground, what usually happens is in the industry here in North Texas is they do what's called a form survey. They actually go out and survey the forms to make sure that the house isn't past an easement or anything like that. And so the that's also stamped off by the surveyor, but all it usually shows is basically a rough outline of where the house is gonna be. It doesn't show where porches are, it just shows where foundation is.
Right.
You'll get a final survey when the property is finished being built, and it'll show the driveway now and the sidewalks, and it'll show where the porch is and the house is, and everything is again stamped off. But sometimes you're trying to design the pool before a final survey and, get into the permit process and everything like that. So what you have to get is a form survey, and usually the person that has the form survey, everybody goes to the salesperson that sold them the house, and they give them a copy of the plot plan, which is not the right document.
Right.
The superintendent that's running the job usually has the form survey. He's the only one that's gonna have it because later on there's gonna be a final one, so nobody really sees that document unless it's the superintendent. So you can ask him, and he could provide that information to you, uh, and then we can end up going in the right direction in that process. The reason you want a survey too over a plot plan is a survey's required to show easements and setback lines and other things, floodplains that may be critical, and none of that may be on a plot plan. So people buy homes and the salesperson didn't disclose that there was a 25-foot drainage easement that went right through the middle of the property where you thought you were gonna put a swimming pool.
I had one last year like that.
Yeah. It happens so often, and it's so sad because it they usually never find out until after they've already finished the house and moved into the house, and then we're out there for that appointment, and we look at the documents and are like, "Did you realize this was here?" And they're flabbergasted.
Hmm.
I told the person I wanted to put a pool in, "What do you mean there's this here?" And, easements, they're like, "Well, can you fix it?" And that in my career, I've been able to get easement modifications 3 times in 30 years. So,
It's not easy.
the question is generally no.
Sure. So if I just moved over here, say I just moved over here from a different state and I bought a house that's 30 years old
Yes.
and I decided I want to get a pool. Where do I get a form survey from? Where do I find the most current, the correct one, the right one? I can't find it. And then the builder's out of business. And as a consumer here in Texas, if I need that, where do I resource that from?
So, there's 2 things that are gonna happen. So, when you close on your loan for your property, they survey your property. That's part of the closing process. So in your closing documents of the house, there'll be a copy of the survey, and it's generally on a legal piece of paper. Unless it's a very large property, then it may be a larger copy of a survey. What I've run into on several people are like, "Well, I didn't get one in my closing documents." and you have a customer that's very blessed there, because that means they paid cash for the house. So there was no survey done, and so they're going to have to hire a surveyor to come out and create that document.
So it's the bank that's requiring the survey?
Whoever's processing the loan is
Mhm.
requiring the survey. So at least that's the way it is here in Texas.
So it sounds to me like most everybody likely has a survey in their closing documents. And if they
Most.
didn't, they could hire a survey company to come out and do a survey for them. And what does that typically cost?
Well, it depends on how complete a survey is, but, it's less than $1,000 generally, or, if it's a very extensive one, it might be $1,500, but you're not gonna be able to get a building permit without that document. So, if you don't have it, the sooner you start the process to get it, the more effectively your property can be developed and designed.
So if you're listening now and you're thinking about getting a pool, and you can't find your survey, now's the time to get a survey planned and get somebody out to survey your property because you're going to need it. We're not going to be able to get a permit, and there's not going to be enough good information off of just taking some measurements off the site in order to design a pool for you. So you need to have this survey.
So there are also different types of surveys.
Mm,
So most of the surveys are just going to show the house and the grades. So you can also get a grading survey, okay, where they come out and actually locate all the elevations on your
like a
property.
topo.
And they're going to develop a topo map like, I go backpacking, I
Mhm.
use a topo map all the time. And it's going to show exactly how the grades lay in your yard. And when I have a project that has greater than a 20-foot topography change on it, then I want a survey company to come out and do a topo plan of at least the area that we're working in. Now,
Sure.
sometimes I'm working on a large piece of property in a state. I don't need the whole thing a grading survey, but we need to deal with the area in that space. And along with that, a lot of times they'll do a tree survey and they'll come in and locate all the trees and the type of tree and the size of the tree. And there's certain cities that we're working with now that trees have become a big deal after they mowed them down for the last 50 years. Now they're very concerned about the trees that are left. And so those trees are actually logged and monitored, and you have to do the right thing around them and stay certain distances away and everything like that. So it's helpful to have that information as well.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about the trees at some point because that's a really big one here in North Texas with the amount of trees that there are. And I don't think everybody recognizes that they can't just mow down every tree that they want to, and that some of them are protected, and that some of them require a lot of attention and a lot of consideration if they're going to live.
Oh, yeah. I mean, cities now will put huge values on trees, and the fine that is associated with removing that tree is quite large. But I was dealing with that back in, Sacramento in the early 90s. They had aerial photography and they knew every heritage oak above a certain size was numbered. And you'd go in to get your building permit and they'd be like, "Oh, no, you can't put a pool there. There's a heritage oak there." And you'd be like, "Oh, how do you know that?" Because it was all logged and,
Mhm.
monitored. So, yes, trees are becoming a bigger and bigger deal, to work with. So, the survey's probably one of the most important things, and again, if you're buying a piece of property, that's the first thing I would ask a realtor is, "Can I see a copy of the survey?" And if they hem and haw a whole lot about, "Well, we don't have one, we can't find one," I'd be like, "Well, I need this to know," especially if you've got like a creek behind or some water situation. A lot of times floodplains can be very large, or you might be dealing with the Army Corps of Engineer, and you might be sharing, that may be on your property. And there's great restrictions with all those things too that you want to know before you buy something what you're dealing.
Yeah, so that's a great point too, and that is if you're buying a house and they can't find one, that probably needs to be a stipulation on closing. You need to provide me with one because you're going to need one at some point. I mean, it's not even just for pools. If you do an addition on your house, if you do improvements in your house, and you get any sort of a permit, they're going to ask for the survey. So that's definitely probably the most important thing to have, or one of the most important things.
One of 'em. What would you say would be another one?